Welcome back, team. If you are new here, my name is Chloe Brennan. I'm a strongwoman from the UK. I've won some stuff, done some stuff. I'm the 2023 Europe's Strongest Woman and Natural World's Strongest Woman, and I know a little bit about competing. I've been around a while, doing it a while, and have learnt some lessons. So today, I wanted to casually sit back and be like, today I'm going to take you through my 5 top tips before you start competing or whilst you're competing. But it wasn't a very smooth transition. But I've been told I've got this whole sofa to play with. So this is my way of making a very still video a bit more interesting. Join me on the couch for my top tips. But no, this video will be relevant to you whether you are fresh out competing, whether you've been doing a few competitions, or you're really wanting to make the most out of competing as quite an experienced competitor. Like, there is definitely something that you can take from this video, whatever level you are at. I guess without further ado, let's get into it. So there's a couple of tips for before the competition, and there's a few tips for going into the competition. But first top tip is on choosing the event. Obviously, if you've been competing for a while and you've qualified for things, the choice of competitions kind of isn't so much in your grasp. Like, you're going to be going through qualifying pathways and whatnot. Obviously, you still have a choice. But if you are newer and kind of trying to get more competition experience, my first top tip is choose a competition that is going to challenge you. Don't go for the competition where you look at the weights and the events and you go, I'd smash that, I'll win that. Like, that's so easy, because training's going to be like, you're not really going to have to train at all for it, which means that you're not really going to develop that much as an athlete. You're just going to be going in for a trophy that when you win it probably won't mean very much because you didn't have to work very hard for it. So I don't think you should choose one that's like totally out of your depth where you can't do any of the events, but one where maybe you're like, oh, maybe I could get like 1 rep at that weight or a couple of reps, and then you're aiming obviously to build that up over time, or something might just feel a little out of reach, or something that you're really confident in. So a competition with a really good mix of things for you, and things that don't just favour you and that are going to push you to work on things that maybe you're not so good at or that you don't enjoy so much, but also things that you're like, you know what, I do feel confident on this. So get a good mix in there. There's a few different ways you can look for competitions, and this is something that I always get asked a lot in terms of like, where the hell do I find a competition to compete? So in the UK, there is a website called Strength Register, so we'll link all of these below so that you can access them really easily. So if you head to Strength Register, you can filter by like date, you can filter by location and have a look there, different competitions. In the US, there's a site called Iron Podium, and that's where they kind of house all of their competitions that are going on, and that's across all federations, like both in the UK and in the US on those respective sites. So they're a really, really good place to start. A lot of competitions will have pages on Facebook, but obviously you have to search Strongman and then go through. So these databases are really, really helpful. So my advice, first top tip, would be get onto those sites respectively, kind of wherever you're based. I'm not sure if there is an equivalent in the rest of Europe or Australia. If there is, if you're from somewhere that isn't the UK or the US that I've mentioned, comment below and let me know where you get your kind of competition information from, and I'm sure that people will find that really, really helpful. So tip number 1, choose a competition that is going to challenge you but not overwhelm you. We want to have to work to compete, because the overarching thing is that we want to improve, right? Tip number 2. Once you have chosen your competition and you are training for your event, this applies whether you have a coach or not, honestly. Obviously, if you have a coach, you're going to have a program laid out, which is going to be very, very helpful for you. If you don't have a coach, you might want to get a program laid out. It does make things much easier. But what I'm going to talk about isn't so much about the programming, but more about the sessions themselves, and just learning to play and explore in the lead up to a competition. Obviously, you will see events and you might think there's only one way to do it. But for example, let's take an axle. axle, floor to overhead. There's so many different ways that you can do an axle. You can power clean the axle, you can belt clean the axle, you can belly clean the axle, you can strict press it, you can push press it, you can power jerk it, you can split jerk it. You can do very slow reps where you're very slow and controlled. You can do reflex reps, right? So there's so many different ways that you can do things, and that depends on how heavy the weight is for you. If is it a ladder, is it 1 rep, is it max reps, and that's all going to depend. So just playing and training and exploring and looking at it as an opportunity to have fun, and just try different things rather than just starting on one way of doing something and that being the way that you do it. And it's the same with moving events or like with a sandbag. So don't just think I have to pick up a sandbag like this because everyone picks up a sandbag like this. Play around, try doing it like horizontally, try doing it vertically, try one motion in the bag up and then carrying it, try doing a lap and load and see what's faster. Like, collect as much data as you can whilst you are playing with the events. That's the absolute beauty of this sport, that it's not super standardized, so there's so many different ways to do things. Like, don't just see an event and think that's the way to do it. Like, push yourself to play and push yourself to find different ways of doing things, because I tell you now, like, if I hadn't have pushed to find different ways of doing things, there's a lot of competitions where I wouldn't have done as well. Like, perfect example being Giants Live just recently. So everybody did the tire by getting it up on their shoulder and running. I didn't have the time. I didn't get myself up there enough to practice with the tire. So for me, I couldn't do that. So I had to find another way of doing things. And that's another thing. Like, if there's an event where you're like, I can't do it, work around and find a way to do it. So with the tire, you will have seen me flip it, get inside it and run inside it and then load it slightly differently. With the deadlift, I chose to hitch it because for me that meant I could get more reps, and that's just being smart and being playful and being creative with my training that meant that I could actually get those events nailed for me in competition. So don't be afraid to go against the norm, go against what people say you should do. Try different things, play and see what works best for you within the rules. And that's another one. Within the rules, read between the lines. Tip number 3 is set process goals. Don't go into a competition with your only goal being to win or podium, because unfortunately, whilst you can control your own performance, you can't control what everybody else does. And it might be you have the performance of your life, but there's 2 other people that are better than you, so instead of winning that, you come third, and then you're disappointed because you've come third. So setting process goals before you compete is super important to, one, keep you focused throughout the competition, but also to keep perspective. And this is something I've learned quite recently. It wasn't that I was kind of caught up on my placing, but I didn't really set super objective goals. So I might think I should be happy with something and then be disappointed because I hadn't set anything in my mind of like, this means that I've succeeded or this means that I should have done better. So process goals for each event. So before you compete, sit down and write down what you expect of yourself on every single event, and not in terms of placing or position, but in terms of like actual performance objective data. So it could be on, if you've got a log for reps, let's say, realistically, how many reps would you be happy with? And this again, like, be ambitious, but be realistic. If you've never pressed a weight in competition, don't say, I want to hit 5 reps, because that's just setting yourself up to fail, isn't it? If you hit 5 reps, great, it's not impossible, but maybe be like, I want to hit 1 or 2 reps. Or like for me, on the deadlift at Giants Live, I knew I was capable of, like, beforehand I said 2 to 4, so my performance goal was 1 to 2 reps. I wanted that 1, and then I was going to hit the 2, and then if I got the 2, I was going to hit the 3rd. So yeah, break it down and choose beforehand how many reps on each event you think is achievable, how like what time you want to complete an event in, or if it's a medley that you're not sure you can finish, like I want to get to X distance in X time, and it gives you something really objective to work towards. And also, as you're going through the competition, to be able to kind of come back to yourself. So let's say you come and there's a field of 10 and you come 8th and you wanted to come top half in a certain event, but you look at your performance, your objective performance goals, and you go, actually I smashed the goal that I hit myself that I set myself, so I really can't be too disappointed. So it helps to keep you grounded throughout the competition. It helps you to keep really focused. It stops you from worrying too much about what other people are doing, and I think it's really helpful in training as well, because it's very easy for you to look at what other people are doing and think, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. But if you have like your own very specific targets that you're working towards, it just keeps you way more focused and less distracted. And we've seen a lot of people talk about this recently. I think it's becoming much more common talk for people to talk about their own performance goals rather than positioning and placing. So that's a big mindset tip for you to take away. Set your own goals and work towards those and come back and revisit them. That is my before the competition tips gone over. So my next 2 tips are kind of preparation for the day. So I might do another video on actual like when you're competing and things that you can focus on them, but this is purely kind of the build up. So tip number 4 is having warm-ups prepared before you go on the day. So on the day when you're in competition, this thing happens, right, where everybody just becomes like headless chickens. Everyone forgets that they can lift weights and they think they need to do 1,000,000 reps at comp weight before they go out onto the competition floor, and then you look at them and you're like, oh well, they're doing that, so I need to do that. And then it just becomes pure chaos in warm-ups. You start questioning everything that you've ever done, and it's just like, it's just a disaster. So for me as a coach, for all of my clients before they compete, they have a warm-up plan to keep those constraints on and to stop them from spiraling and going, I need to max out in my warm-up, because you do not. So before you go to your competition, write out a document, take a notepad and put down everything that you are going to do to warm up for that event. So like if there's a normal like movement prep routine that you go through in your sessions, write that down. And then for each event, what reps, sets, weights are you going to do prior to the event itself? So if you've got, I don't know, let's say you've got a 200 kilo yoke for 20 meters, 10 meters there, 10 meters back. You don't need to do every single warm up 10 meters there, 10 meters back. You might do, if that works for you in training, do that. If you don't do that in your training, don't like that. Put exactly what you're going to do. So you might, for me, it would be, I want to do a few acceleration drills at like 70% of comp weight. I'm going to do 2 to 3 drop and turns at 5 meters, so I can drill that drop and turn. And I'm only actually going to go up to 90% for one run of 10 meters. That's all I need to do. So then I go in and I've got it. And when I'm warming up, if I've ticked off everything on there, I know I'm ready. I'm going to be good for the event. So take in your warm-ups and your warm-up plan and stick to it on the day to stop you flapping, because we don't need to flap. We don't need that. And my final tip number 5 is be prepared with food and drink, because if you are not prepared with food and drink and you do the whole competition running on gummy bears and monsters, you are going to feel like ass the next day. You'll feel like you've had a hangover even if you don't drink afterwards. It's awful. So you need to be fueling yourself adequately. So taking plenty of fluids. I always get the like this size water, 2 or 3 of those minimum. And I will put in like a fruit juice. So I use cranberry juice and orange juice, coconut water, bit of salt, and like a hydration formula as well. You can put like dextrose carb powders in there, that kind of thing, dextrin, whatever, just to keep sipping throughout the day. You want fast-acting carbs that you're just able to eat easily, and there's no like right and wrong thing to be eating through a competition. You don't want super high sugar all day because you're just going to feel like ass by the end of the day. but things that you can eat easily, quickly, like bananas. If you know you're going to have a big gap between events, like little things like wraps that are quite easy to eat and digest. Rice cakes are brilliant. Bagels, jam, things like that are really, really great. But yeah, make sure you are eating between events, and please eat more than just sweets, and don't drink pre-workout. This is another big one. It's a pet hate of mine, actually. People having pre-workout at the start of a competition. Yeah, you're going to feel buzzing for the first 2 events, but especially like a lot of competitions run like literally you could be starting at 10 in the morning and finishing at 5 in the evening. If you've had pre-workout at 10 o'clock in the morning, how are you going to feel when you're doing an event at 4 p.m? You're going to feel like absolute trash. You feel like trash. And we don't want that. We want you to be at a sustainable level all day where you can kind of just keep ticking along. So avoid any like heavy stimulants, I would say, until I would use like caffeine on penultimate and final events, and sweets, Skittles and things I use on my last 2 events just to give me a bit of a pick me up, but try not to eat anything or drink anything too extreme before then, or you will just feel like rubbish. But I know I've kind of mentioned there that like crash and coming up, and I guess that kind of leads me on to a bonus 6th tip. When you are actually competing, try to chill out between events. Like if you get that adrenaline spike on the first event and then you try and hold on to that, you're gonna feel rubbish. Like learn the volume control on your hype button. Don't stay hyped all day, or you're gonna feel crap by the end and not going to be able to give it your all. So learn to like build yourself up for an event, and then learn how to switch off and chill between events. That's probably the most valuable skill I have acquired while I've been competing. The ability to just be able to sit down, relax, nap, whatever, between events and just chill. Like don't be in athlete mode all day, because it is exhausting. So learn your off switch. Like Tom Daly takes bloody knitting and stuff, doesn't he, to his diving meets, things like that, just to help you switch off between events. So there is 5 tips there with a little bonus. Hopefully very helpful. Drop in the comments below if you already use any of those tips, if there's anything that you're going to be using moving forward, or if there's any bonus ones that I haven't mentioned in this video that have really helped you, because I want this video to be like a hub that people can click on and be like, this is really helpful, and then go through the comments and be like, oh, there's more helpful stuff here. Because obviously this channel is for entertainment, but I want it to be able to help people as well. So drop your own tips and tricks below as well. If you enjoyed this video and would like more tips and tricks around competing, training, drop that below. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in. If you're not subscribed, subscribe, and we'll catch you at the next one.